both of you, even though I'm just working with Miss Malcolm on this particular coaching cycle, and she and I've already had a couple of initial meetings. So I came in and observed your class for science, and it was a challenging class, I noticed, and I know you've just gotten thrown into teaching 5th grade and teaching math and science instead of just ELA that you're used to, or self-contained 3rd grade is what you were doing. So thank you for sticking it out. And I know your schedule's changed a lot based on a lot of the changes that have gone on too. So flexibility is the name of the game, and y'all have done a great job being troopers and hanging in there and doing what's right for kids. But when I observed Miss Malcolm, and you were up doing a lot of work. You were doing a lot of the talking, and she was monitoring students, not just her 2 students in your class that have an IEP, but she was kind of just rotating around the room. What I noticed, just some general feedback that I have already given Miss Malcolm, is that a lot of the students were struggling with the readability of the material. So we talked a little bit about some ideas that we had for that, and it seemed like you were having to pick up a lot of the load cognitively and help scaffold to get them to be engaged and be able to read. I noticed you were doing some things with vocabulary and having them take notes and giving them some closed sentences so that they could have sentence frames and help them. So that's what they were doing at the time when I noticed a lot of them struggling. So one thing that Miss Malcolm and I talked about, and we wanted to make sure that this was okay with you, and it doesn't have to be, but I've talked to Mr. Wyman about the possibility that Miss Malcolm came up with, possibly pulling some of the students out so that they're not all in here. It's a pretty big class in a small amount of space.
Yes, we've discussed that a lot.
Yes. Well, the rooms just aren't. It's not that it's an unreasonable amount of students. It's just the rooms just don't seem to be designed for these kids, and they're the adult sized at this 5th grade level. The other piece of the puzzle for this that I think is interesting is that we have the SESI group coming in January, so the dynamics of the whole grade level will look different.
Right.
So what Ms. Malcolm and I talked about was possibly a short-term goal.
Okay.
And when we looked at this, we talked about how her 2 students that have the IEP, science is something they've typically been interested in, with her having worked with them in the past couple of years. So it's something that we could captivate with their interest level, even though their readability is so low. We could try to work with their interest level being so high and meet in the middle. In doing so, we also looked at, I had made notes of a couple of the kids that seem to be struggling who don't necessarily have an IEP, but might benefit from being pulled out.
Okay.
And my hope is also it might benefit you of being able to work with the kids differently. If they are out of the room, you could work with some of the higher kids that are in the room, and you could do some extensions and things that might be a little more on the fun level that you might not be able to get to with these others that are bogging things down, both academically and behaviorally. So some of the ones, and we can make adjustments based on what you're thinking, but just to kind of, we were just in the identify stage of the coaching cycle and looking at the current reality. And a lot of what they were doing was DOK level 1. So we were trying to think about ways that we could kind of beef things up and make it a little more grade level and increase engagement while getting the comprehension on their level, scaffold it back, but keep the content on grade level. So we wanted to just explore some things that might make it a little more interactive and high interest using some small group instruction. So we're wondering if we can use something that they've already done as a pretest, looking at where they are academically, looking at their grade that they made, say, on their last assignment, maybe their last 2 assignments, and then looking at their engagement level through tally marks, you know, just basic. It's hard to measure engagement because you're basically going on what they look like. I can assume that if they're talking while you're teaching, they're not engaged, for instance, that would be something that I would look at. If their heads are down on their desks and things like that. That would be the things I would kind of look at when tally marking students as trying to judge whether or not they're engaged. It's hard because just because they're not making eye contact with you doesn't mean they're not engaged, because a lot of kids don't necessarily make eye contact, but that doesn't mean they're not listening. But we can do some quick reflections after some group lessons, and that would bring us up to the winter break and when the rosters might look a little different in January. So I know y'all are working on cells in science.
We'll start that this week.
Okay, so it's a brand new unit, so it's a good time to start something new and work on something that we can measure in a few weeks and see if the small groups changes the outcome for the whole class, but in looking at a coaching cycle specifically with your students that have an IEP. So there are specific students that came to mind when we were talking about it, that this is where we need your input for sure. And we've already got Caden and Carter that have the IEP, so they would definitely be the ones that we would think about with a small group setting. So what would you think about, I know you mentioned Jordan, Nova, Zoe, Angelique were ones that you mentioned. Some of those were part of that chatty group that there was a group of girls in the back that had lost engagement, and they were talking but not talking about what you wanted them to talk about. So are there,
Jordan, Nova, Zoe, and Angelique.
okay, what are your reflections on that?
Zoe is one of my higher ones.
Okay.
She would be one that I would keep.
Okay,
And I would change out my charm,
okay.
probably, you think? Or how do you think she does in science? Is she higher or not?
The ones that I would look at would be,
You're looking at
yeah, great.
some grades, okay, good.
Okay.
I like some data-driven decisions. Don't know, okay. Is there anybody that stands out that even if it's not an academic situation, but somebody that,
Jameer,
okay.
Jamir.
Just like it sounds. Okay.
Nova would stay, not with me, but
Okay, so
she's good on
that's a
that
good
list.
choice, okay. How do you feel about Jordan and Angelique?
Jordan,
Has he been doing okay?
he's borderline, but it's only because he puts most of his focus on Landon, and Landon is one of those things that will be leaving in January.
Right, so would it be helpful to separate them in that
So,
way?
Yes,
Okay.
Jordan would stay on the list.
Okay,
As far as Angelique, I think Angelique would stay with me,
okay,
and I would probably wanna switch him out with Deasia.
Or Angelique out with Deasia?
Yeah, Angelique out with Deasia.
can you spell division?
D'(AZIAH).
Okay, so that would be Caden, Carter, Jameer, Nova, Jordan, Deasia, that would give Miss Malcolm 6. How do you feel about the dynamics of what that would look like with those 6?
The dynamics of those 6 would be okay.
Because all-
Jameer and Deasia would probably be 2 that they are chatty to each other,
Okay.
but
And then Carter would be chatty with all three of them, but
In a
the
small
thing
group?
is most of the time, they only show out because of other people.
other
Right,
people in the class,
right,
it's-
right.
it's
But when they're by
usually just
themselves, they're
the one
fine.
that-
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty okay,
Yeah, and they're manageable.
yes.
Okay.
You can keep their chattiness on
Yeah,
topic.
yeah, there you go.
Okay, and that was another thing that she mentioned was that, for example, Caden is not contributing to the conversation, but in a small group with somebody he's familiar with, in a group where he's not worried about what the other boys are thinking, would it change his ability to contribute to the conversation?
Definitely unmedicated, so his
Okay.
focus is off, and being in a whole new setting just doesn't help, so
Okay,
him being in that spot would really help.
would be helpful, okay.
And we've talked to mom about it multiple times. I can only say so much.
Right, okay. Do you plan to give a pre-test of any kind
No,
before?
because I
Okay,
don't have one, but if
Okay.
there was one that I could find, probably so. But at this state, probably not.
okay. If that's
And
something that
this-
we could do with this small group, would you want us to share it so that you could look at the whole group as well?
I would like,
Okay, I think it would be great if you're willing to do that, to compare the two groups too, to look at the growth within the small group versus the growth within the whole group, if you are open to that. And we can look at what's in here, and then her lesson plan is on the shared drive, so we can look at what's in the slides on the shared drive too, the animal and plant
I have
cells.
to get on my other computer.
Okay,
without
that's okay.
authenticating on my phone.
Okay,
I don't have
all right, no worries, no worries. So that would be a pre and post, and we could look at that data and compare the small group versus the class peers. We can look at their individual data also, their current grades versus, you know, if we see any changes. Within this unit, what kind of assessments have you looked at? Is there just one at the end of this unit, or are there checkpoints along the way?
there's checkpoints
Okay.
along the way that I get on Google Classroom.
Okay,
This is one of the ones that we've.
so there's
tested.
multiple ways we can measure, okay,
This is a unit one that I got from,
the previous, okay. All
but
right,
yes, this was a unit on plant and animal classifications.
Okay.
I have not given one on traits yet,
okay,
so we were, gonna go through and review traits.
okay,
Well, actually, I did.
Yes,
that's okay.
remember you did, we did.
Yeah.
We did have.
So we don't
I
need to
was ready.
create assessments for checkpoints between now and
No,
the,
I have them, so
Okay.
this is actually at the link,
okay,
it's all the way at the bottom, and it's like a little pop
okay,
quiz down the bottom.
okay,
So one is they have to label the parts of the cell,
Right.
get to it,
okay,
and then other things as well. There's a compare and contrast Venn diagram that I could use and things like that.
okay,
So I don't give it all at one
No.
time, I break them apart.
okay.
So,
And that's something that we could use also to kind of check in and see how the progress is going. I don't wanna wait 3 weeks, that way
Yeah.
if something's not going well,
no.
we can,
So it's in this is, down is what I use, something that's like this.
okay,
So they label
okay,
the questions like that, and I just break them up for
Okay.
when we get to that portion.
okay. Perfect, it's great,
So like, I don't do all those slides. We go over vocabulary,
okay,
like, just how in CKLA, they go through that vocabulary, just get a glimpse of it first,
Mhm.
and then they apply it when they get to
Okay.
it. I do that, so that's why you see those vocabulary review at the top.
okay,
And it's
yes,
just to briefly
just
just
to,
go over
so
what
they're
we're gonna be
familiar with the
looking at.
words, yes, I understand,
And then we do the introduction, we're gonna go through all of that.
okay,
And then also, I do a lot of quizzes in
Okay.
between. So I find different quizzes, or I create ones that go along with what we just talked about,
okay,
which they're very competitive, so they like to do that
Yes.
to see how they score and all that kind of stuff. So I
Okay.
do sometimes take that as a formative, depending on how they were engaged in it, what the environment was. Sometimes I don't, depending on if they're all over the place, if
Okay.
they're not focused on it. So, I go through that, do those quizzes, and then give them sometimes another little question or like a little exit ticket where they have to write something real quick.
okay,
Do that, and then keep going through my slides. basically.
Okay. that you plan to, have you mapped it out to finish it before the
Yes.
break?
So
Okay.
I plan on doing planting animal cells
Mm-hmm,
for these 15 days.
okay,
So I'm not
Okay.
moving on to anything else in that time frame.
okay,
So like after that, it'd be like microorganisms, but I don't plan on
Okay.
starting any of that until after Christmas break.
sure,
So
yeah.
we're just gonna focus on, that way I can take my time and just pull different things and do different
Mhm.
little activities. Like I plan on getting clay and Play-Doh and things so they can make the animal cell, the plant cell,
Okay.
so they can actually make a little model.
Okay, I could predict that that would be more helpful with with less people and some small groups going
Yes.
on, so. And if any point you wanna pull them back in, I mean, you have the
Yeah, just let us
autonomy as
know.
the teacher, obviously, to do that if you decide that it's a better setting to include those 6 students and you wanna bring them back in, that's completely fine. So, we just need to make sure we're communicating
Right,
as far as what's being graded and put in the grade book and make sure
Yeah.
that everybody's on the same page as far as that goes. What questions do you have? Okay. Do you have any questions?
Not at the
How do,
moment.
what are you thinking? What does it feel like? Does it feel doable? Do
Mhm.
you have a prediction? You think it's gonna help? Is it going to?
And then in here, I know what's gonna be using with those kids that could. So they have like little journals in here.
Yes, okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because one
But
of your
they are
students,
for like my
2
group.
of them have.
writing
journals.
is
Writing
part
is
of,
their
in their
goal.
IEP
Okay, that
goal,
is their
so.
goal.
So I did plan on doing, because of the milestones and just that I
Yes.
kinda missed that little writing piece anyway. I was trying to figure out how to apply it.
Okay.
But there is, what I liked about this was there's a reading connection
Okay,
with the comprehension questions, that
Right.
this is something that would be above them, but I would let them do it like in groups at their, like,
Okay.
little groups.
the scaffold it,
Yes.
do it in partners.
Because I know they couldn't do it on their own. This one is also something as a math connection. Now, it can be fun, but I know it's above them, so I was gonna plan on like snipping this and then putting equations that actually
They could do.
they could do.
Okay,
So
Right,
once
yeah.
they do the equation, it tells them where
okay,
it goes. It matches with the numbers.
okay,
So, I was gonna do that because we're working on multiplication, so I was gonna
change it to
literally take
multiplication.
this and just
Mhm.
switch that out to multiplication. So that was the math connection,
Okay.
trying to do that, and then this was the writing. And then I was gonna look at how I could scaffold that, because
Yes.
I haven't looked at that yet, and then that was gonna come later.
Just at a glance, without looking at that, it looks like it's going to raise the DOK
DOK to like a
level to
level
be
3.
more of a 2-3.
Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yes.
Mhm.
So what I was going to do was, cause I've done this in their, with them on traits. So I had them do a writing, thank you, just identifying their traits and
Okay.
whether the trait was inherited or acquired.
Okay,
So that was something that I did with them on that. So I was gonna see what I could do with this,
Mhm.
and then in my Google Classroom, I can create different ones.
okay,
So I could scaffold this to my higher where they could keep this like it is, and they have to work here.
okay,
And then others go down to a DOK 2 and the others DOK 1, just to figure out like where they are,
okay,
just based on the grades and what they show.
okay,
So that is my plan. The
Okay.
first week I plan on the reading,
okay,
then the math connection, and then the writing will be last.
So you won't have them do it in partners or the other.
The
group, like-
reading, yes,
Cause I know we
will
can't
be
read
a
it too now.
whole, like, 5 people working together, and they take turns, like, I would,
okay,
like, strategically group them, so they have someone who's a on grade level reader,
okay.
and people that like that.
So how
So
would you do that
also-
in this small group with this particular group of students? Is there somebody,
Nova is a
okay,
very
stronger,
good
okay,
reader. But,
TH is a good reader.
she
Okay.
is too. But how I do it is,
They're all good
they
readers.
have to do this,
Okay.
so I would have one, they all would have a copy.
okay,
That's one thing, they all have their copy, and then you will have one who's the reader, and I just give them kinda like jobs.
Mhm.
a reader, you have two of them that are gonna go in and find like text evidence, like
Okay, perfect.
person who's like their recorder be like, okay, I'm recording our answers, but they all have to work together. So
Is there some student choice there? Do they choose their job or do you?
I
Free
like to let
assigned.
them choose
Okay.
their job, but with this group,
Okay,
I don't know how.
they may not be there yet.
No,
Okay,
probably not yet.
okay,
Like, I won't give Katie the option to read,
No,
Okay.
no.
but
So that's why
not, I don't want them to,
assign, okay.
Yeah.
Jobs.
yeah.
Okay.
I could assign Nova to read it, you know, she's a really high reader.
Okay. Okay, this sounds like a plan. So it sounds like we need to work out space and make sure that we're okay with that. We have permission from admin.
At one point in time, like when we pull, I know in math, we do the same kind of similar thing,
Okay.
they pull a group out. And they used to go to my old classroom, but
Mhm.
now Ware and Bonner are moving into that classroom, so that they
Okay.
can put the new classroom.
SCSI,
in their
okay.
Classroom, so.
And there is the possibility of Miss Rhodes.
I'm gonna ask
Miss
her when she, because I think they're at lunch and specials at that time.
Okay, all right. So it may
They
be
are.
that we can find space